from their encounters with races from other planets. The information is the activation. Let's awaken this world together. We are the forever students, and we will not be silent. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Pretty wild. Welcome, everybody, to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox. This is the Embattled broadcast from behind enemy lines in the once great state of New York. And here we are. So I hope everybody enjoyed the event this weekend. It was absolutely incredible and epic, and it kind of gave me a little bit of an insight into timelines itself of, one of the things I like to say to everybody is, even though we put these events on, we learn just as much as everybody watching. And that is amazing. It's amazing because there's a lot more information out there than even we dive into. But because of things said at this weekend's event, now we are in the quickening. And we all know that the quickening means that we have to step our game up and step our level up. So one of the things that we were planning on offering for everybody would be sort of classes, right? Classes, or let's say lectures that go to the next level. What I put out here is a kind of leveled down version of what I think people want to hear and the subjects in which we're tackling. So because of this coming solstice and the tools that we need, we're going to take it from somewhat novice level to the intermediate level. And tonight is one of those nights. We're going to be talking about the electric wars. We did the galactical beginnings and we left out the electric wars for a reason. We did that because the electrical wars are a lot more in depth and a lot different. They're a lot different than the other galactical. This one did this one did that, and so on and so forth. There's layers and dimensional levels to what we're talking about. So the first thing I want to bring up before we start is a picture. And this picture is going to give you an insight into what we're talking about tonight with the electric wars. We know that there are third dimensional wars, fourth dimensional wars, sixth, seventh, and eighth level or eighth dimensional wars. So let's put this up. And as you can see, a simple explanation for this picture is you see Earth, you see Terra, and you see Gaia. Well, Earth is the third dimensional incarnation of this planet. Terra is the fifth dimensional incarnation of this planet. This planet is a multi-dimensional or multi-density plane of existence. Also, we have Gaia, which is the seventh dimensional version of Earth. And when we sit there and say we want an awakening experience and we want to ascend into the 5D, or we want this split to happen, this is what we're talking about. This is because of the density levels, and you're raising your density level, you're able to exist on that 5-dimensional Terra as opposed to that 3rd-dimensional Earth. So the name Terra, it's been used to describe future Earth and its 5D form, the soul matrix universe, right? Now, again, tonight is going to be very, very advanced. And of course, you see there's the auric Earth. I said that I can't speak tonight. The aura Earth or auric Earth. This is beyond 5th dimension. That's 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and even 12th dimensional Earth. So when we dive into this tonight, it's going to be very, very complex. A lot of this comes from Ashiana Dean and the Phil Grubers of the world, and the information is activating you as we go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically read passages, not so much passages that are made up of a book, passages that I put together. And these passages are going to have words which you may not understand. So after the passage is read, we're going to go over definitions of words that you may not understand. Also, we're going to go back and reread that same portion to now find it with a little bit of more context to it, because we know what those words mean. So this is what we would do in a course or some sort of lecture that is, second, third, fifth level, I guess, ascension, right? Well, like I said, what we talk about on this channel is more, it's more of the general ascension. And I do that on purpose because I want to reach so many people and have them come in to start understanding. But I think now that it's time to kind of really go in and stay away from the generalizations and get really deep into the subject. So the electric wars is a perfect place to start because it becomes it's the beginning of humanity. This is what we know as humanity. This has to do with the root races and the first off, it's not even the first root race, it's the second root race, but there's something behind it that they're transforming us into what we are now. And there's densities and matrices and terminology that's just going to blow your mind. So let's get into it. Of course, I've made a slide presentation to go along with it. They're not descriptive slides, they are merely pictures and a little bit of context to help you, visualize something while we're doing this. Also, some of the pictures in these slides, they relate to what we're talking about, but they may not be the specific intimacy of what that really contextually brings to the surface. So let's all take a deep breath real quick before we start, and let's let go of programs. Let's make sure that we're here, we're present, we're listening, and everybody is in this together. And also, I'm going to keep a better eye on the chat. If you have questions about what we're talking about, put it in the chat. Try and caps lock it if you can. If not, put question in front of it so I can address those as we go. This is an interactive experience. You're going to leave here understanding the Christos ideology or methods a lot more than such. And the electric wars is a perfect place to kind of dive into the fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional thinking, possibly even sixth dimensional thinking. So let us begin. Now, the electric wars is 5 million years ago. This is a race war over the second root race, or classified the wall in time, separated 12-strand DNA. This is a need of the collected fragments and timelines. And that's what brought this about, was the talk of timelines. The 2D to 4D soul split and this soul rescue mission. So that is what this details. Now, the main antagonist group is the Orion group, the Orion Invasion Force. And this is a group of negative entities like the Anunnaki, the Draconians, or the Necromittans. Okay. So that source out of the phantom matrix space into parallel systems that invaded through the Orions. And they also formed an alliance to take control over Earth. And these intruding groups are referred to as the Negative Alien Agenda, the NAA. That's what we're going to talk about them from now on. When we mention the NAA, we're talking about the Anunnaki, the Draconians, and the Necromittans. Okay? Now, we can see parallels already. Necromancer, Necromitten, obviously they're not what we think they are. They are relatively service to self type of entities. Now, I'm not going to say they're all bad, but the groups that we're talking about in this context are. So basically, these groups use technology, open wormholes that were blended together to create power required to attempt to pull the Earth body into black hole system. This would lead into the phantom matrix where they exist and could then gain total control over the planet and humanity. The parallel systems these entities came from is called the Wessa system, a universal time matrix, and it's parallel with both particle and antiparticle aspects. Many of the Anunnaki and their hybrids originate from the Wessadic system, or Wessadak, while the draconian species are coming from the antiparticle universe called the Wessadrak system, right? So there's the Wessa system, there's the Wessadak system, and there's the Wessadrak system. So we're seeing parallel universes. These are not all linear to what we're talking about when we talk about, entities from afar. What we're doing is we're talking about entities that reside within this universe. We're talking about entities that reside outside of that universe, from parallel universes using wormholes and technology to cross into our universe. This is a multi-dimensional aspect of contact. And this is where we get into the extra dimensionals or the ultra dimensionals. This is why this is important to understand it. Not everything is black and white. Again, everything comes in various shades of gray. So this is a crash course in advanced level spirituality. We're going to keep going. Now, again, some of this you understand, some of it you do not. So now what we're going to talk about is a root race. And what is a root race? So, as a part of the human race or other ET races, we all have contributed and participated in several levels of this planetary experience via experiments in the development of human consciousness and various timelines, also evolutionary cycles. In each time cycle, a level of root race, aka similar to the 12 tribes, had a particular purpose in its exploration of consciousness and assembling a strand of DNA. Hence the 12 strands of DNA, the 12 tribes. We see symbolisms all over the place, esoteric meanings behind specific things that we're talking about. Each worked in its own way with a genetic or DNA advancement of the human species and its relationship to the school of planet Earth. Each root race, as a collective, had a mission to assemble certain strands or certain DNA strands and qualities. Each seeding mission programs certain experiences designed to clear various miasma or distortions in karma created from other timelines of genetic destruction. So, within certain potential timeline cycles, humanity was being spiritually prepared to achieve the greater and greater level of enlightenment and ultimately becoming fully connected. So, powerful, multidimensional God beings of crystal star design. That's what our intended purpose was to become. So the divine birthright of the human angel was to play the dualistic worlds of polarity, to experience the lower form worlds of creation among a litany of other experiences, consciousness experiencing itself in a physical playground. Ultimately, we were returned to source and assume with our new multidimensional consciousness maturity the stewardship of the planet into cosmic citizenship. So that was a lot right there. That was a lot. So as we see, we're going to keep going and we're going to push through it. We as we integrate all the levels of the root races and their DNA genetic memories, we are called upon to be aware of these core fears and distortions that we're processing and healing them. These core fears are implanted and entered in the planetary grid network and the cellular matrix memory of the planetary bodies. These are being processed through our own bioenergetic and physical selves as we grow through this current evolutionary process of ascension. So we're seeing what's happening here. This is what the root races were, and this is how they're directly connected to who we are right now. Our purpose was to ascend to multidimensional consciousness in a sense of a crystalline light body creator being. They call it God in some works, but it's not. God, of course, resides at a higher level. But we're talking about 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensional entities or density, 12th density energies and entities. So now we're going to go into how that how that affects the elect wars, right? And Omar is absolutely right. He says root races have subs. Yes, they do. They do. We're talking about the potentiality of the root races. So that's a great point too, because eventually that all comes around, right? So let us keep going. Now we're going to get to the electric wars itself. So a huge war broke out over the second root race seeding on 7D future Earth Gaia. This is called the Electric Wars, and it is the Hyperborean Holocaust. It was a conflict over the dominion of Earth. So basically, what this is saying to you is that a huge war broke out on seventh dimensional Earth. This war was fought for third dimensional Earth so that they could have that physical playground, right? That we just talked about. So the realms and the DNA seeding of the evolution of human, aka Christ kingdom, the human kingdom, the Christos kingdom, was the race war conflict ensued over the genetic mutations and DNA damage that was caused by the explosions and other races' subsequently evolutionary and genetic digression. So, what that's telling you is that this realm was seventh dimensional, seeding the third dimensional, injecting their DNA into the human kingdom of that third dimensional Earth. Now, the races started to conflict with each other over who was going to get to put their genetics into the DNA strand. And by the damage that they caused because of certain things that happened within that, injection of or mutations to the DNA, it subsequently gave a genetic digression. And that genetic digression is being played out right now. And that we're going to talk about a little bit further as well. So, this is why we crave the ascension. This is why we look towards others to essentially give us information that is going to help secure that drama and really retain it and get rid of it, right? But we can't forget it completely. We have to understand that this all happens in concession with each other because it's a living experience. So, again, this is advanced stuff, so keep up if you can. If not, watch this again. It's gonna get a lot harder to understand from here. But again, like I told everybody, I'm going to define some things after each passage, and then I'm going to go back and read the passage again. And when we do that, you'll understand it a little bit more. But it's great to take it in twice because that's also how we learn. The repetitiveness helps us learn it as well. So we're going to talk about seeding one, the seventh dimensional Earth. And again, it starts with a huge war broke out over this root race and this root race seeding called the Electric Wars. It was a conflict over the dominion of Earth. And after the Lyran Wars with the Orion group destroyed the Lyran planets, right? That's when this takes place. The race war conflict continued after the Orion Wars in Lyra, which ensued over the genetic mutations and DNA damage that was caused by the explosions in multiple other races' subsequent evolutionary and genetic digressions. So the lyran-elohim and the founders initiated to ensure that the human species would continue and evolve, especially in a lower dimension or the lower dimensions of Earth, Tara, and Gaia, but would be sealed off from the higher realms as to protect the higher dimensions and entities from all of the distortions and the genetic mutations that had occurred within the human race. So I think I didn't go to the next slide. Sorry. So basically, they cut us off. They cut the human race off from Tara and Gaia and even higher in the auric Earth because of these genetic mutations, and they were distorting the timelines and also the dimensions. So humans would have to undergo a slow evolution to reassemble the DNA and clean up the mess to be allowed access to the cosmic families again. our bodies were sealed off and were separated from our 12 DNA consciousness. And this distortion to us created a separation between our antiparticle and particle selves, meaning we now experience separation and duality. Many more distortions to the human species blueprint and consciousness occurred through subsequent seeding and evolutionary rounds. So each root race is an evolutionary round, right? We see that, including our light body layers as well. And to begin the healing of our fragmentation, we would begin to unify our stations of identity and its layers of consciousness through the time fields, aka dimensions, during our repeated incarnations. And we would begin the unification of our consciousness by starting to draw on our Lumerian fragments in through our 2D and second chakra and our Atlantean fragments through our third chakra and the conscious mind. The human 4D astral plane body would also draw in third and fourth root race fragments as a part of the separated emotional soul body that was created from these distortions in our morphogenetic field blueprint from DNA damage. So, another task for the human race is that we're responsible to collect these fragments of ourselves from the other root race cycles and seedings. Now, that's a lot to think about, right? That's a lot to sit there and say, holy crap, like, what is he even talking about? Basically, because of all of those distortions, like I said, we were cut off from the higher forms of ourselves. Living in this third dimension, we should be able to basically reach seventh dimensional entity without a problem. But they gave us evolution and duality to separate us from them and to give us the ability to work back our way through the chain, collecting pieces of ourselves as we go. And that is the journey of ascension and awakening. When that certain information is said to you and your brain goes into overdrive and you're like, I resonate with that. That could be a potential part of yourself returning to the collective, which is you. So does that make sense to everybody? I mean, am I describing this in a way that's kind of being, able to be digested? I hope I am. And if I am, let me know, please, because like I said, this is advanced stuff and I want to make sure I'm telling it properly. Let us going. So now we're going to be talking about the precession of equinoxes. And this is basically giving us time, right? It's giving us a way of looking at time. It also talks about cycles, which is a 25,920 year precession arc, or what we know as the Yuga cycle, right? So we're seeing the terminology might be different, but we know a lot of this information already, right? So let us keep going because we have a tremendous amount to cover and we're already almost a half hour in. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. So, another term we need to know is the precession of equinoxes. Earth's precession was historically called the precession of equinoxes because the equinoxes moved westward along the elliptical relative to the fixed stars, opposite to the yearly motion of the sun along with the elliptical. The precession of the Earth's axis has a number of observable effects. First, the position of the south and north celestial poles appear to move in circles against the spaced fixed backdrop of the star, completing one circuit in approximately 26,000 years. The precession of equinoxes is used interchangeably to describe the mechanics of ascension and the ascension cycles as the evolutionary progression of humanity's consciousness and expansion on Earth. Now, again, I'm going to bring it back to me. What have we been talking about for the last 3 years? The equinox, the one equinox, which is going to bring us to this breaking point where the earth will be split by frequency. 3D Earth goes one way, and 5D tarot goes the other. So now I'm giving context to what we talk about. And that's why this is important information. That's why this is something is, we really have to dive into this. That's why we're going to pick up the pace on the in-depth spiritual investigations that we've done. So we talk about this because it is at that we're at this end of the Yuga cycle, and this equinox shows us that. And we're going to move into that new age. And moving into that new age comes with some destabilization, but also shows us that there is an ascension process that's been in the making for millions of years, bringing us back to our former solidified evolutionary state. So correlations are happening everywhere. As we keep going, now, another important part of the electric wars before we go into some more of the story is the planetary Stargate system. This is something we have to dive into very quickly. It's very short, but planetary gates are Earth's connection points into the galactic and universal Stargate systems. They were once sealed off and closed, but now these stargates are progressively opening during the ascension cycle. The organic planetary Stargate system, or Universal Tree of Life Templar, is opening, but it has damage, and it's been damaged from the NAA, the Negative Alien Agenda, and the alien machinery abuse from the negative entity collaboration to control Earth. One such war in human history, again, was called the Electric War. This necessitated Crystal Star Guardian intervention, and this intervention is referred to as an Ascension Plan B with mission upgrades. Science knows these energy vortexes as wormholes. So, this is what we're talking about, right? And this is another reason why the uptick in contact has happened, because these planetary Stargate systems are slowly opening. So, what does that mean? That means that telepathic communication to higher dimensional entities is becoming more possible or more available if we're looking at it, right? So, let us keep going. We're going to talk about the race that was involved in the Electric Wars, which is the Hyperboreans. Now, who were the Hyperboreans, right? When the Electric Wars happened to the Hyperboreans on Gaia, they were split apart from their higher counterparts in Polaris. Polaris is the initial root race. So when you think of Polarans and Hyperboreans, these are part of the first root race that were ever seeded as a part of spirit coming into a type of body and having a consciousness, having some kind of experience on a planet in a body. Hyperborean is the beginning stages, was again a conflict over dominion over planets such as Earth. So, who's going to seed here? Who's going to live here? Why are you here and I'm not? This is what happened. And because of this massive tragedy of war, the Hyperboreans split and fragmented. Some of them were incarnated on our planet, and those mythologies that we know about, that we call mythologies of the Hyperboreans, are actually the titans we know in Greek mythology. So when we're talking about Perseus, Zeus, the Olympians, we're talking about the original races that sourced from the Hyperboreans. Since that what Omar was just talking about, the sub races of the root race. This Greek pantheon could essentially be a sub race of Hyperboreans, and we're seeing that play out. So, one more thing I wanted to bring to light before we go more into the story was a side note that I had here, and this is the true end of the universes: space, matter, time, our universe, the concepts in which we know our universe by. So, right now, during the precession of the equinoxes or the end of the ascension cycle, we can access up to the 12 astrological processions in the inner world's timeline, which includes another 288 possible organic timelines, totaling a whopping total of 864 timelines. And all of those cellular memories and their DNA fire within us. See the true one of the universe at the center of this. What this means is center point cycles. When merges occur, new architecture can be created and repaired, which impacts the particle and antiparticle time field. This time is now. The worlds are the accessing the key to creating the universal ascension timeline known as the Ascension Plan B. So we're ending the ascension cycle to pick up another area of ascension, which is once we hit that 5D, we close off one ascension cycle for the next ascension cycle. And that's what we talk about with this great split and the truon. And that's when we start to see the truon of the universes kind of break apart at certain points in the time cycle because it's all merging together. And the new architecture that they're creating is not creating actual buildings. We're talking about pathways through that ascension. And it impacts the particle and antiparticle time field. So we're able to manipulate time just like we talked about last night. And that's why this kind of fit so perfectly within what we were doing yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So let us keep going. Now we're going to talk about the Electric Wars timeline, basically a timeline of events that happened. This is where it gets this is where the terminology starts to get a little bit out of control, but don't worry. Like I said, I'm going to read it, define some topics, go back and read it again. So, the Electric Wars timeline holds major casual trigger event memories of when artificial intelligence technology was in its early phases in the universe. This timeline represents the pre-assimilation stages of the black subtle forces in the phantom matrices before gradually converting them into an AI system. The eighth astrological procession was the time of the Orion invasion event that occurred as a result of the Stargate damage. In the eighth portal, and through each of the subsequent planetary time cycles. So alien machinery was methodically into each dimension in order to reach the lowest densities of the material reality. Essentially, the negative alien agenda plan was to bring the electric war dramas to the matter fields of the earth in order to anchor it into a physical realm, which shifts future timelines. So a term we heard within that, what we were just talking about, was alien machines. What are these alien machines? Non-organic and artificial machinery that are placed in many layers of the light body, both personal and planetary, by the negative aliens, primarily through the manipulation of frequency vibration and the use of hidden militarized weaponry. Most of the alien machinery is sprayed or targeted through a technology called holographic inserts and alien implants used for mind control and soul capture onto artificial timelines. These could be simple mechanical devices to complex systems like nanotechnology that are being used to infiltrate, block, or siphon life force energies and harm the human organic biospiritual energy systems. Same levels of machinery, which are programmed artificial intelligence systems, are used to control planetary energies and siphon life force to be used by off planet entities. Much of this alien technology and its continual development of hidden underground or space war machines is enforced by the military industrial complex. The negative alien agenda and their machinery is complex and needs power source in which case we may see battery bodies or soul bodies connected to them to supply that power. This has a similar functioning as an artificial machinery and an alien implant. So that's the first topic, right? And a lot of people are familiar with the alien machinery. Another term we heard was the black subtle forces. When I describe to you what a subtle force is, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I promise you. And if you don't, I'm going to tell you what I think it is anyway. So let us keep going. So at the base level, there are black forces that exist in a negative polarity that especially connect to the material earth elements and the force of gravity. It is the principle of unconsciousness or falling asleep in the material world, and its weight is very dense and heavy. As a result, it tends to produce an inactivity, darkness, dullness, or absence of light. Sound familiar? While it obstructs the person's action potential or movement forward. When a person holds too much negative polarity or this black colored subtle force in their energy body, they will show effects of ignorance, delusion, intensity, and unconsciousness and lack of sensory feelings with little to no empathy. The profile of this type of person is also having deeply buried psychological and emotional blockages with the tendency to be stagnant, repressed, depressed, or internally chaotic, and then making them distracted or unaware of what their problems really are. They allow negative forces or dark forces and other people to completely control them, usually in the victim role, and then refusing to take responsibility for their lives. By refusing to take responsibility or make productive actions, this allows their problems to escalate along with the amount of substance they're generating as blockages, and that's within their body. Without balancing the black substance and transit from their conscience, this will digress into a state of internal chaos or apathy, with sensations of great physical, mental, or emotional pain, or even numbness, leading to a state of disease. This is truly a state of hell or of lost souls. Sounds like an NPC, doesn't it? Or somebody who was once a light body and is now reverted into an NPC. So the negative ego construct, militarized psychotronic weaponry, and the alien machinery is used on the earth to trap humans into mass producing more and more black subtle forces. This ferments into black miasma karma, leaving the masses ignorant, deluded, unconscious, therefore totally confrontable and controllable. Consequently, the alien technology and the mind control methods are designed to generate and circulate as much of this negative polarity, black force, and density into and out of humans as possible. Many people that feel depressed or are stuck or are sucked down in the weight of negative polarity is a part of this black force. The density of this black force blocks higher sensory perception completely. This type of person will need to take some kind of action in the positive polarity to help dissolve this black energy accumulated in their body, which generates a sensation of extreme density or stagnation. So now we understand that the NPCs are a part of a program in which they're being culled. That black energy is being culled from them. We know this as the archons. The archons cipher vampiric energy. They're like energy vampires, ciphering the negative frequencies off of those who reside within it. So the black subtle force is essentially that negative energy that's being created. And there are entities in which consume that, or at least hold on to it for the time being. And then they use it later on to instill matrices, right? So this is pretty much the dark side of things, and that's why we talk about it. That's why we have to bring it to the light, because now we're shedding light to this, and when we shed the light to this, people can see how incredible that the human potential really is. But if we get stuck in these vortices of the black subtle forces, we can still be saved. And that is another point that I want to make here. These people can still influx positive polarity. They can still come to the side of good. There is no lost soul. But right now they're wrapped up in something that they don't understand. So now we have to see it, address it, shine light on it, and help them, right? Especially before this great split. And that's why we're talking about this stuff right now. So let's go back and read what we just were reading before about the story, right? So the Electric Wars timeline holds a major casual trigger event. It holds major casual trigger event memories of when artificial intelligence technology was in its earlier phases in this universe. This timeline represents the pre assimilation stages of the black subtle forces in the phantom matrices or matrices before gradually converting them into an AI system. The eighth astrological procession was the time of the Orion invasion event that occurred as a result of a Stargate being damaged in the eighth portal. And through each of the subsequent planetary time cycles, the alien machinery was methodically brought into each dimension in order to reach the lowest densities of the material reality. Essentially, the negative alien agenda with the plan was to bring the Electric Wars drama to the matter fields of Earth in order to anchor it into the physical realm, which shifts future timelines. Makes more sense now, doesn't it? A lot more sense now that we've talked about it. So the next portion of this story goes as such. The AI technology is used by the negative alien agenda as a sophisticated psychotronic warfare strategy installed into the planetary grid system. This is being directed at the population in an attempt to enslave the consciousness of the Earth. From this point in the timeline, AI technology was set into perpetual motion to assimilate realities from the damaged eighth Stargate in the galactic center. That's where the negative alien agenda had gained dominion to control access in and out of the Earth realm. They gradually brought down assorted alien machinery from the eighth Stargate through an inorganic vertical hole, an artificial architecture that they built with programmable reversal elements and then installed in the vertical axis of the planet. And this is also called the Yahweh matrix. Essentially, the Yahweh matrix distorted and cut off the natural planetary staff alignment, which, when combined with the NET, stopped all of the incoming and outgoing communication signals of outside dimensional control for the negative alien agenda. So, something we heard here, I didn't change. There we go. Now we're going to talk about the Yahweh matrix or the dark cube, as some people know. Omar has talked about the dark cube and the symbolism of the dark cube for I don't know how many episodes now. And the, I guess, physical manifestation of the dark cube. We're going to talk about the etherical matrix of this dark cube. So the Yahweh matrix is a system and it's connected into the black cube matrix held through Saturn. This is siphoning life force from our universal time matrix and routing it back into their black hole system. Saturn's cube holds a massive tank that acts as a harvesting station for blood sacrifice from human beings any way imaginable, whether through wars, rituals, crucifixion, martyrdom, suicide, or even menstrual. This makes it obvious why Saturn has been long associated with an assortment of blood worshiping cults. And Saturn is also the solar the solar seventh gate. So it's being used to pump out reversal violet ray plasma light, and this is the distortion that generates reversal plasma and reversal violet light on our planet. These reversal plasmas are designed to ignite and to feed the demon seed that exists in the shadow selves or the negative forms of masses. Additionally, this alien construct was used to impale the crucifixion implants on the vertical, this is a crazy word, axiational lines in the planetary body, which also devastated the vertical channel alignment of the planetary staff. Now, you're probably asking, what is the planetary staff? That's an easy one. This is what Omar talks about all the time. The Saturn matrix is hijacking Earth and Earth's people to be enslaved into the subtle black force and keep it pumping, keep it coming, right? And that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about this cube as a representation of the axis in which this dark force is being projected either to the from to the demon people, which is the archons, or you know the ultra dimensional beings, which are now others, and we'll talk about them a little bit later too. But we're going to talk about planetary staff. This is an easy one. So this is the inorganic axial tilt of the Earth, and it was set up through the NET fields for gravitational corruption, soul capture, and transmission of mind control broadcasts. The beast machine was designed to destroy the architecture of the vertical pillar that is the planetary staff and to eliminate the mother of God siphonic principle in this reality entirely. Destroying the mother principle meant that all organic living creations would also eventually digress to become the black hole entities, parasitic creations addicted to deathlight in the matter world. Hence, they would exist in the AI world as the living dead. Again, cu- going back to what an NC is. It is a living dead person. It is devoid of light body or soul, as we call it. And they walk around and facilitating whatever the AI or whatever the negative entities will within this matrix. So during this phase, the planetary staff is being rehabilitated by the crystal star guardian host, which means that our own inner vertical channel and relationship to the planet and the stars is also being radically transformed in this cycle. Now it makes sense, right? Now it makes sense. So let's go back and read that passage again. One more time. The AI technology is being used by the NAA as a sophisticated psychotronic warfare strategy installed into the planetary grid system. This is being directed at the population in an attempt to enslave the consciousness of Earth. And from this point in the timeline, AI technology was set into perpetual motion to assimilate realities from the damaged eighth Stargate in the galactic center, where the NAA gained dominion to control access in and out of the Earth realms. They gradually brought down assorted alien machinery from the eighth Stargate through an inorganic vertical wormhole and an artificial architecture they built with programmable reversible elements, and then installed it in the vertical axis of the planet, and that is called the Yahweh Matrix. Essentially, the Yahweh Matrix distorted and cut off the natural planetary staff alignment, which, when combined with the NET, stopped all incoming and communication signals outside the dimensional control of the NAA. That's contact. That's also us to source. It's layered, right? Just like our light body is layered. It's talking about the connection to source and how they're kind of hampering on that connection and how they want to control that connection. They also want to enslave people and create these outside realities that essentially are capitulant to their will or to the AI's will. Now, an artificial intelligence doesn't mean computer. Artificial intelligence means it was created and maybe now it's sentient. We don't know. And that's why we can talk about that later on. We can get into the specifics of what the AI is. But for right now, we're focusing on the negative alien agenda because those are the entities most closely related to what we're talking about. So the Yahweh matrix replaced the planetary staff, which allowed the black hole entities to gain easy access into Earth through the north and south poles in order to distort the planetary field. This was done through genetic modification and set up frequency fences that broadcast extremely low frequencies that make the Earth more hospitable for their survival. The low frequency and static net broadcasts produces a predatory mind construct or predatory mindset. And the thought forms intended for mass human parasitism or parasitism, divide and conquer tactics for spreading war. These artificial nets and constructs were further designed to progressively pull Earth, her world, soul, into inorganic black holes. Right? So for this, we're going to define black hole entities or what's called the moon chain beings. They are soulless beings like the Greys and Zetas. They have been cloned and hybridized for use by the Anunnaki, the Draconians, and the Wessa groups, etc., whom have placed these beings as workers on various planets. The moon chain races are a part of the refugee races that came from exploding planets in our solar system. Maldek, possibly Nibiru, right? Moon chain lineages are also cast offs of other cycles of evolution between multiple planets in our solar system. The moon chain lineage have been directly involved with karmically and technologically, purposefully creating the sexual misery program in the human race. And this happened during the Dark Ages. The sexual misery program is to distort, manipulate, and abuse sexual energies, therefore spiritual energies, in human beings incarnating on this planet. The Baphomet fields are intricately involved in all deceptions and trickeries relating to the seducer archetype, which promotes the sexual misery program of the lunar forces or the moon chain lineages. Many of these control structures on Earth were held in place through magnetic imprint transmitted from the moon, an artificial satellite. The Orion forces from Saturn have been using the moon as an outpost to transmit lunar forces to Earth. And they have used the moon chain lineages as work for the purpose and for many millennia. These moon lineages have been inherently responsible for the mind control transmitted to Earth to create gender separation. Now, when we say gender separation, we are talking about male and female, but we're talking about the energies. A lot of this is physical and non physical, right? That's what we're talking about. So I don't think we've moved yeah, that's the, so now we're going to talk about the predator mind or negative ego. This is some pretty intense stuff too, because when we start to understand these things, we see that it's sort of what we're seeing right now on the planet, right? So, again, when we're talking about a lot of these matrices and fields, we may not be talking about physical incarnations of, let's say, Baphomet, Satan, whatever it is. We're talking about energies. Because one of the things that we know is that us as human beings are energetic beings. Therefore, when the physical container dies or subsides, the energy becomes transferred or maneuvers somewhere else. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transferred. Same goes with a lot of the other entities that reside out there and the fields and matrices. While they are energy, they can be distorted or changed. They will never fully go away. They will just kind of turn to something else, right? So let us keep going here with the negative ego or predator mind. The conceit of egotism describes a person who acts to gain value for self-serving and motivated and instinctual desires while taking in an excess amount of resource that which he or she gives back to others sometimes. They may also be referred to as service to self. Usually, they're the actions of taking others' energy, time, and resource, and is accompanied with very low etherical standards and displaying low moral characteristic traits. This is also called consumptive modeling or energetic vampirism. Ego, I can't say it right. Egotism may be fulfilled by exploiting the sympathy, trauma, or emotional, or even ignorance of others, and as well as utilizing coercive force, deceptive manipulation, mind control, and fraud. The egotistic is had an overwhelming sense of centrality of the me operating in their personal qualities and personal identity. This is a person who cannot be trusted, as they will always manipulate the circumstance to be of service to self as their primary or only concern. Without developing self awareness and ego discipline, the untamed negative ego is exploited by mind control and further develops into a sense or serious pathologies which lead to narcissism and psychopathy. The psychotronic mind control harness the lower vibratory frequencies that comprise the lower three layers of ego are targeting negative ego and behaviors in the population. So that's what we're talking about, right? So let's go back and read what we just were talking about. Now that we've defined some things, the Yahweh matrix replaced the planetary staff, which allowed the black hole entities to gain easy access into Earth through the North and South Pole in order to distort the planetary fields. This was done through genetic modification and set up frequency fences that broadcast at extremely low frequencies that make the Earth more hospitable to their survival. The low frequency and static net broadcasts produce a predator mind construct and thought forms intended for mass human parasitism or divide and conquer tactics for spreading war. These artificial nets and constructs were further designed to progressively pull the Earth and her world soul into an inorganic black hole. So, as we keep going, this is the last part of the explanation of the timeline. Much of the electric wars were fought on Gaia, the seventh dimensional Earth plane, with AI machines being programmed from remote satellites or NAA ships cloaked inside the phantom black holes, accessed through the wormholes ripped open by the damage in the eighth Stargate. These were subspace and the hyperdimensional pockets, the Metatronic nets used to cloak ships or based directed energy weapons, which can set off massive EMP blasts. This was used as an alien defense system in the eighth Stargate, so nothing could pass through beyond the meta galactical zones. So what they did was they destroyed pieces of the eighth or damaged the eighth Stargate to off a lot of the Tara and Gaia dimensional incarnations of the planet. Now, what's happening is the people who essentially were at harm were the Hyperboreans because they were the ones roaming Earth. And now all of those entities that were of the negative association were also stuck on the Earth third dimensional plane. So what they did is they set up constructs to send energies back to Tara and Gaia, but not so much Tara and Gaia, the negative entity route, right? On the karmatic side of the playing field. So they set those up to help the negative entities that resided in the other parts of Earth or other parts of dimensional Earth, I guess is the best way to say it. So that's where this happens. Now we're going to get back to the Hyperboreans because what happens to them is significant. But we're seeing that there's a matrix, and this matrix is now being instilled by these negative entities. And these entities are trying to cull third, fifth, and seventh dimensional Earth. They're trying to siphon that energy. It's all about energetic. And we talk about this being a spiritual war. This is what we're talking about. This is the essence of that spiritual war. Because this may have happened, but it is still going on. There is still siphoning of the Earth's people. And NPCs act as surrogates to help facilitate that subtle black force to wherever it's got to go, interacting with the light bodied people of Earth to siphon that energy or to confuse and essentially destabilize the masses, right? And or just to be vessels for those negative entities to come into and act upon accordingly. So now I want to talk about the Gaian matrix, right? And this is kind of what we've been talking about. Anyway, as we move forward, I'm not sure if there's any questions in the chat. I'm sorry, I've been really trying to get through this because it's a lot. We still have a lot left to go, and I'm trying to break it down as fast as possible. So, the return of the solar rishi into the matter worlds is a significant event which has generated massive impacts to the timeline architecture of this reality. This is why this is this time period we're focused on the current that's happening in this timeline. The Guardian projects and direct impacts made to the future timeline of seventh dimensional Gaian matrix. This new configuration has radically changed the galactic and metagalactic correlation, and this is continually unfolding new organic timeline patterns for ascension within the planetary architecture. The eighth dimensional metagalactic core is also the Gaian planetary core, which previously held in a black sun in the eighth portal that was configured from an exact AI replica of the Gaian matrix during the Electric Wars. So during the winter solstice, gold body activation, a sixth harmonic universe for 60, 70, and 80 was completed. And this is gradually restoring the Gaian matrix to its original pre fall state. This was directed through an intervention in which non dimensional cosmic God source fields emerged to host the newly created harmonic universe, surrounding or permeating Gaia within a new universal mother dark matter matrix to correct timeline damage resulting from the Electric Wars invasion. From within the restored Gaian planetary core shines a Christos infinity sun, which emanates its solar plasmic rays for the gold sun DNA body from the eighth dimension. as well as assorted RH Sun Star solar factors designed to spiritualize our bloodstream in crystal waters and ignite the plasmic coding within our neurological system for the transcongruation of our etherical body and third dimensional consciousness. The amethyst order and violent flame Yanis and Ramyanas, from the Ra God world have been instrumental with organizing extensive e- um, emin- e- I can't say it right because I'm emancipation gridwork projects that are happening in the Gaian matrix to restore the universal tribal records for angelic humanity. There are assortment of Magi Grail King Queen instruction sets that restore Gaia's consciousness record for the ascended master's lineage, including the embodiment of the Gaian architecture that holds the original founder emanations of 48 DNA standard Azarites, and the tri-matrix of the Azarites includes three 48 stranded matrices that hold 144 dimensions that are accessed from within a quad merged core manifestation template, a 12 tree grid that's based on the Eka God world configurations, the access into the seven higher heavens. These particular Christos diamond sun body templates are forming complete crystal cathedral alignments for the solar rishis and the founder's lineage to pour their consciousness body into, vibrating themselves back into the Gaian matrix, which is freeing many more ascended masters' identities that were being trapped in the black sun constructs. So the ascended masters will be more inherently coming to the earth and within the Gaian matrix to help liberate us from the third dimensional matrices that we are a part of now. And to not eliminate, but eradicate a lot of these negative entities back to the dimensions in which they come from. So having a greater awareness happening in tricks that are eradicating Holocaust timelines and alien machinery used by the Black Suns from the electrical wars on Hyperborea for a timeline bleed through on Earth. This also helps us to better understand the hidden spiritual warfare behind the aggressive pushing of toxic nanotechnology that are currently being mass marketed on Earth to the population. Everything happening on the earth at this time is connected to the spiritual war happening at multiple dimensional levels, whether we can understand this is taking place or not. I almost said something that would have gotten me censored on YouTube, but we know what the nanotech is, right? We all know what that's produced over how the last few years. So we're seeing this all happen, and it's absolutely insane. So I see that Christina just talked about the Seven Sisters. I've done a small presentation on that I've never put out, but it's the Seven Sisters are not only linked to the cosmos, they're also linked to Aboriginals and to Native Americans as well. Side, but we're going to talk about the meta galactic core. But first, before we do that, I want to talk about the Gaian phantom body. Now, you're going to say we were just talking about the Gaian matrix. So now we're going to talk about the Gaian phantom body. So during the stages of the invasion to conquer Gaia, made through a series of electrical war campaigns, they increasingly used the living matrix of the Gaian body. This was further siphoning from our solar system through all of the other dimensions and timeline densities by running a Metatronic reversal from the metagalactic core, which pulled life force from out of the grid network of our entire planetary matrix. The generation of the Gaian shadow or the Gaian phantom body during the final stages of the Gaian wars was the primary casual event in the human Holocaust timeline that has been feeding and holding together the first matrix origination of the artificial tree of life. This reversal pattern or blended reality system. So, the artificial tree of life, a base 10 reversal matrix designed to run the Metatronic reversal or Antichrist death current, further infected the entire planetary matrix and angelic human DNA through its mundaic body that was bonded and fused with the original Gaian shadow etherical body forms. This particular historical timeline trigger event of fusing multiple timelines with the Gaian shadow body is what runs the Metatronic reversal pattern and the artificial tree of life imprint throughout the Albion Cathar body template that is located in the United Kingdom. Each dimensional sphere with the Albion Cathar or Christ Crystallala pattern must be read and reconfigured into the correct manifestation template design of our original Gaian matrix endic coding that was held by the Azarets that existed in the pre-Fall 7D Gaia. That was intense. That was a lot. That was a lot, guys. So we're getting closer to the end now. I've plowed through quite a bit, but we're going to talk about the meta galactic core and what that is. The meta galactic core. We're living through the personal mystery of waking up to find out that Earth humans have been existing in fallen systems. We are in the process of undergoing a spiritual liberation of our planet in which everything we thought was true is being tested and challenged during this time. The Metatron Collective entered this fallen system with a mission of rebuilding the Lyran Gate and helping to repair the 8 dimensional layers of the meta galactic core. We look at why this is necessary and how their failure and capture have become entangled with alien technologies of reversal fields used to siphon and entrap. Recently, Guardians have been able to access pre fall and pre invasion templates for correcting the architecture in the present timeline. Right? This implication for the 8D and 9D gates and controlled movement in and out of our solar system or our system completely. So, like I said, when we talk about architecture, we're talking about chakra systems, levels of density, dimensional levels. That's all incorporated in architecture, right? So, after the partial fall of the Milky Way system from its mother universe, subsequent distortions were created in the structural integrity of the universal time matrix, in which the organic creator, Christ Kristalla, codes became twisted and damaged and reversed. The origination of the fall of humanity began when the organic structures that interconnected the Andromedan time matrix and the Milky Way time matrix into the meta galactic core were attacked by the black hole entities, many of whom joined together later on, basically later on, to form the NAA, the Negative Alien Agenda. This surprise attack from the neighboring black hole system began several timeline events that would play out in the galactic wars at multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. The galactic wars further damaged the functioning structure of the organic time matrix, which led to the exploitation of that vulnerability by the black hole entities. They began ripping black holes in the fabric of time and space and building an assortment of mind technologies for projecting AI realities that are used for capturing planets and living things to use as consciousness slaves. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy. So, we're going to talk about the artificial life now. because we mentioned it. Well, what is the artificial tree of life? It's not the regular tree of life. So Metatronic reversals connect to Metatronic implants in the shadow body or negative form that are designed to reverse and or drain life force out of the earth body and the human body. The shadow body or the negative form must be cleared from the human light body in order to reconnect and ascend potentially of the 12th dimensional template of what the human body is capable of. This unnatural configuration was built by the NAA via alien machinery that uses artificial intelligence to parasitize the Earth's life force to achieve immortality. And this organized dead energy structure is referred to as the tree of artificial life or the black tree of life. So we see this happening. And now there's a lot of what we are talking about shadow work. Shadow work is getting rid of a lot of these negative tendencies or these implantations on an energetic level that were brought about by the artificial tree of life to try and enslave you within your own consciousness and siphon your life energy. This is what we talk about. So as you can see, we have 111 people in the room right now, which is a sign that we're on to the right thing here, right? 111. Look it up. Incredible. So we're going to talk about the monad now, or monad, monad, whatever you want to call it. Monad. I think it's monad. But monad, the spirit of the monad is the function of the observer, watching and aware of the forming concepts and making assessments. It is the higher mind principle consciousness that comes to the neutral conclusion and decisions based on accumulated experiences. When the spirit is in control of the nervous system of the body, it makes higher evolution of consciousness action possible. The spirit body comes in at the moment of conception through the permanent seed atom and the higher heart complex to guide the formation of the human being's blueprint and prepare for incarnation. Unresolved soul trauma can block the spirit from evolving the consciousness, activate to the higher heart as the soul and spirit are intricately involved in the spiritual functions of the heart. The core essence of the spirit within the human being exists in the heart seed and is moving throughout time and space eternally. The monad spiritual body triad is the seventh, eighth, and ninth layer, but it starts connecting at the eighth chakra level thymus gland, which is the higher heart. When the monad starts coming in like this, the whole heart complex changes patterns, meaning the heart chakra is no longer an astral heart fourth chakra. It is a blue aqua heart. The heart chakra turns blue, and the frequency coming through starts turning blue. This is a connection to the turquoise of the mother arc, and it ignites the inner Holy Spirit called the Amorai or the Amoriah flame. So the eighth dimension is a gold color. But when the monad starts flowing in the diamond heart and the heart starts to configure, it actually looks blue. And they call this configuration the living crystal lotus heart or crystal rose heart. I call it the galactivation, right? This is ascending to a galactical level. So, we see this and it gets pretty crazy. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the Gaian shadow body. And I know we kind of touched a little bit about it before, but this is going to go in a little bit deeper. So the onset invasion of the Wesa entities through the metagalactic core directly impacted the Gaian core and contributed to a series of electric wars in Orion. And this includes the timeline bleeding through the Gaian wars. During the Gaian invasion, an entire planetary shadow body was formed through the use of the advanced black holes. Technology in which the AI replication of the Gaian matrix was captured. This was made for the purpose of capturing the Gaian frequency and generating feedback loops of harvesting energy in order to send the current back through the Wessa tunnel. They collected massive amounts of energy from the Gaian matrix in order to form a phantom black sun in the metagalactic core. And this is run by the eighth density beings, right? The NAAs. So it's a bit of a recap, but now we're going to talk about Albion. And you're like, how the hell is Albion pretty much involved in this? But Albion is involved in a lot of stuff, right? So in the ancient days, the oldest name for England was Albion. The names of Scotland in the Celtic language were also related to Albion and Alba in Scottish. Gaelic, Alba is Irish. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just read that again. So Alba is Scottish Gaelic, right? Alba in Irish and Alban in Welsh, Cornish, and Breton. These names were later anglicized to Albany, which was one of the alternate names for Scotland. And many myths and legends have long existed that the giants were either the original inhabitants of the United Kingdom or were the founders of the land named Albion. The mystical significance of Albion has been memorized through poems, stories, and mythos. Together, they suggest a natural Albion is related to the collective human consciousness and the world soul, to which all are intimately connected. So, the Albion is the androgynous human template created from the 12 spheres of the tree of life, which during the fall of humankind became buried in the lower dimensional fields of Earth, waiting to be awakened. This elemental structure of the primordial human template is located in the Earth body and is made from the original cosmic blueprint. This original blueprint records the divine plan for humanity's ascension to the silicate matrix and holds a celestial record of humankind's evolution throughout the solar system. Now, this is not we're going to ascend to a silicate matrix, but it incorporates a silicate matrix because some extraterrestrials are not made of carbon like we are. They're made of silicate. So it's the combination of the galactical matrix or the galactical consciousness. So the awakening Albion occurs in progressive stages, and recent Sirius and Canopius star transmissions are intelligently designed to stimulate the higher mind activation through the Albion body in Earth. This gently accelerates the shift in the mental body of Earth to reflect the higher mind consciousness, which is reflected into the stages of awakening of Albion. Intense. That's an intense one. So that's funny. Let's stop. Joe Biden's ice cream. Yep. Hit that like button. Do it. Share it out too. Let's do this. This information is paramount to get out there. So let us keep going. Now, the Christ Crystalla, or the universal androgynous Merkaba fields of the Christos Sophia. Now, if you remember, when we did the sacred geometrical shapes, the Merkaba was on there. So, this is one of the reasons why we started with sacred geometry, because getting to this point, now we're getting into what that sacred geometry sometimes brings about, and it's divinic blueprints of Merkaba fields and the Christos Sophia, right? So let's keep going, and we're going to keep talking about this. We're almost done, guys. We're almost out of here. We're almost done for the day. So let's talk about it. The base 12 universal androgynous Merkaba fields of the Christos Sophia are called the Christ Crystalla, or and they make up the instruction set for all Merkaba fields within all timelines and densities throughout the universe. The 12th dimensional Merkaba field, spiral, is the Christ male principle that is generated on the outer fields of the internal Crystalla female principle, with spiral that is generated from the aquamarine Holy Mother arc principle in the 13th gateway. The 13th gateway is the aqua portal, which opens the neutron window that leads into the seven higher heavens through Andromeda. The Crystal Merkaba, this field, have a gender fin alignment that instructs the direction of the starting position for the rotational spin of the top and bottom Merkaba spirals for the male and the female that build the ascension vehicle. So, what I just said was this is the beginnings of the male and female energies because we are the ascension vehicle. The physical human earth body is the ascension vehicle. So, this is how the energies of the male and female, the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, intertwine via the Merkaba. Right? The 12-dimensional avatar Christos intelligence sets the gender fin orientation of the Christ spiral, determines the alignment of the gender polarity spirals in every dimension. Think of the gender fin as the bottom and the top tetrahedron that make up the six-pointed Merkaba star. And there is a male principal gender fin, the tetrahedron, and the female principal gender fin tetrahedron that regulates the starting spin points of our Merkaba spirals and then starts to merge and unify them into sacred union or Heros, Gamos. When we communicate with our avatar, Christos Sophia intelligence, and build our 12D shield, eventually we rebuild the mini Merkaba spirals, which start to align our male and female internal energies, which will start to spin to help unify and build our Merkaba vehicle. By uniting our inner male and female, undergoing the process of sacred marriage, our hero hierogamic union, and obeying the law of gender. The natural process communication links with the Christ consciousness and it begins to build the Merkaba fields. This is what leads to a kundalini, right? That's what this process is beginning. And that kundalini activates these two different Merkaba fields and the one big synchronistic Merkaba that connects you to the Christ consciousness. And that Christ consciousness is, as Michael Felius put it, bigger than everything. Right? It's what leads the energies to and fro. The Christos is what our body past the physical is leaning into the cosmic dimensional scale. And that's, we talk about how we are, we have how many chakras. There's seven physical chakras, but then there's the chakras that go even further, right? And those are galactical. And that's what we're talking about as well. So now we're going to talk about the Azarites because we talked about them, right? Now, the Azarites, the Lyran Syrian contact, expressed that those responsible to guard and protect humanity's genetic records and hidden histories were primarily ambassadors of the Syrian administration councils. The Syrian Lodge is a hall which oversees the 6D network, which acted as the portal for the star and indigo races to incarnate on Earth through the halls of Amenti. This Lyran Syrian administration body created the Azarite Council for the sole purpose of a collective team to support the human embodiment of the Jesus Christ or the Yeshua mission to repair these networks and secure the Amenti field. The Azarites were assigned to primary responsibility for carrying out the covenant of the Palador, which is to recover the lost souls of Tara. The origination of the Azarites go back to the races that were formed by the Rock Confederacy and originally seeded the Gaian Matrix. So the three embodiments were always used to hold tone sequence in matter, bass, overtone, resonant, positive or negative or neutral. The Azarite task force was created to protect and build and guard the stargates on Earth from 1D to 5D. But this failed. Thus, the inner gates of Amenti were sealed and was disbanded from the Azarites team. In the early 2004, to begin reclamation of the Christos mission with upgrades for Ascension, which is the Plan B. And that's the internal contained, and some members of this group defected. So now we're going to talk about the last portion of tonight's presentation, and that's the original fall of Hyperborea. Now, the reason why the Hyperboreans are so important to us is because this was where a lot of the original trauma of the fall happened to the human race. This is when the split in time occurred. And this is when the moon was brought to the planet as its companion satellite to manage the gravitational field. It's like saying in the root races during the process of human evolution or humanity, moving through and helping the planet. Oh, sorry, I messed that up. Of humanity moving through timelines of consciousness. This was part of the original soul that is involved in the first seedings of what this planet would be and helping this planet to reclaim its bits because of the planets exploded, right? So the planets that exploded essentially came back into alignment and were brought back to being with all kinds of problems now with this reunification. It's like saying that this part of the receding of consciousness is helping the consciousness to a particular experience on their planet. And when they talk about the planet here, they're not talking about the actual planet, talking about the planet as your fractals of consciousness that have been exploded throughout all dimensions, right? We're trying to bring it back and have a reunification of that. So the reseeding of this consciousness and helping the consciousness to have a particular experience on this planet. The Hyperborean period is like the golden age. This is when the level of identity is fully connected and fully in your Christ consciousness, meaning you have this understanding that connected to the Godhead, and there is no pain and suffering. And there are none of these types of situations that we deal with on planet Earth. So in this early root race cycle, there was a war that happened. And this is when, and what is known as the electric wars, which fragmented our souls across the multiverse, right? And this is what the electric wars was. This is the beginnings of ascension because we were already ascended before the explanations of our entity fractals going all over. So this has been a look into what the electric wars was and why it's important to go through this information. My voice is slowly fading away. And this is why I say things like this is a hospital planet. It's not a prison planet. It can be seen as such. And I love Brad Olson, and I know he says that, and I agree with him. It can be a prison planet for some. But for those who are awakening and ascending, it's not. It's a hospital planet what it's doing is we're reclaiming the fractals of ourselves that are spread out across the multiverse. And that is ascension. That's the evolution process. So, with that being said, my name is Rob Yox. Thank you all for paying attention and listening. And, you know, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And if not us, then who? And hopefully, this information was the activation. So, with that being said, I'm going to bid you all good night and share this far and wide. Let's change the world. Let's make it to Tara, right? Awesome. See you guys later.